like what's the wetland impact for a shed?
And it wasn't even a permanent structure. It was just laying on the ground.
No, well, I don't recall that the shed was our main issue.
That was actually their primary because they had ordered it. It was a 20-foot shed and it was on its way. So when my neighbor came up to me and they had to cancel that delivery, you can imagine she was not very pleased at all.
Right.
So
There was also a very large question about how they were going to maintain the meadow around the pond. And that went up to 5 feet of the pond. So
yeah, for the expansion, but for the shed was completely far enough away from the pond that it would have had, in my view.
I'm sorry, I don't remember discussions
I don't remember
about the
either.
shed.
Yeah. I don't think
But as far as I remember, it was all
no
about
discussion about
It was the land.
Well, let's
It
not
was-
tag team. Let's one at a time.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I
don't recall a shed that might have been
Okay, yeah,
zoning
so
or somebody.
I may have been
some other-
mistaken, but I thought it was all lumped up into conservation.
That must have been a while ago, though, Darryl, because I've
It was
looked
2 years
I've looked at the last 2 years of ConCom agendas, and for the most part, they're averaging around 14 to 18 hearings a year. You do have a lot of septic systems, which for the most part are getting approved in 3 to 4 meetings. It probably could be a little faster, but I don't know the details. So yeah, I mean, it's another part of the whole land use that I'm looking into. But yeah, for the most part, I think you should be able to move things relatively quickly through ConCom. Again, I think, this particular commission tends to apply a much larger no-build zone, which is, within your purview. But I think that's part of what drives things is how much, what is the real impact there. And I think people are used to being a little bit more flexible in the buffer zone than I think Georgetown has allowed historically.
May I speak to the shed issue?
Yeah, I believe you came out and actually measured it for them, didn't you?
And I will speak to it. I can't speak for the other part of the project because this was my early days in dealing with this customer. And to Steve's, in support of Steve, as a rule, he's fine with sheds. People come in for shed permits, whatever. He's been good from my experience. When it came to this one, I was a little beside myself. They had a lot of things going on, be it handwritten, whatever. That's has nothing to do with me. But when I went over there and there was an existing shed there, and they wanted to replace this shed, I says, look, take the tape measure from the shed away. Go the other way. Typically, you measure from the wetland line to the 100-foot mark. You get your 100-foot mark down. So, with the reverse, when you take the tape measure and you go from the shed, you don't, and you put the 100, you mark the 100, the water's edge is far away. So you have 25 feet that you can build on. Now they just want to put a shed there.
So was it a conservation issue or a zoning issue?
This whole project was in the conservation application, the NOI, whatever it was. So I get passionate about these things. I'm on the Conservation Commission in Linfield. These people wanted to replace an existing shed. They wanted to come in for a permit, and they couldn't get one. That's all I have to say. Here. Yeah. This particular shed was over 100 feet to the water's edge. Whatever the wetland line is, I'm not a wetland scientist. But that shed should have had no problem, no permit required to replace an existing shed. It was just a little bit bigger and right where it was, or whatever the size was, it was that much closer, be it a foot or two. I'm sorry, but I was beside myself in that situation.
Going forward, the project's settled, so that's done. I would say my question would be going forward for future projects. And so if resident comes to you with these type of issues, I would like to see a little bit more leeway to the resident than to just saying no.
Oh,
Just-
we never say
We
no.
never just say
My
no.
gosh.
No.
Well,
In
for
fact-
2 years.
In
So
fact, listening to this, I'm thinking that's why we don't remember it, because it wasn't an
It
issue.
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't.
I don't believe we had an issue with the
No.
shed in that particular
No.
project. That's why we don't remember it.
Right.
They came in for a
So-
building permit, I couldn't get it, that's different from
Okay.
an NOI.
That,
Yeah.
It was
Let's
all
let-
part of the NOI, and it didn't
Okay.
need to be.
thank you, Angela.
I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Fowler, do you have anything?
To the contrary, I could have issued,
Angelo, thank you.
sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I think should these issues come up in the future, I think the easier way to do it is maybe we can just convene as opposed to, I mean, nobody should wait 2 years, but again, while I think $5,000 engineered plans is a bit much, I also think chicken scratches on the back of a napkin is probably not the best way to do it either. And we have resources where we can help residents. I'm certainly not opposed to putting in my time and effort using, the various ArcView and GIS technologies we have to make that stuff happen. If those are the holds up, we'll get through. And I mean, again, I think a lot of people now are getting savvy about, getting, I tell people, get an ANRAD, just get your lines, like, sort of what Angela said, get your line done, work 100 feet out, and then you're home free. The one thing I will say, and I'm a little concerned about it, but I also understand why, is I've received a number of communications from the agent about, well, it's outside the buffer, but maybe when they're working, they might go into the buffer zone, so we should probably bring them in front of the commission. The one thing I want to stress is legal compliance. There is no elastic clause in the Wetlands Protection Act. And if there is in your bylaw, then your bylaw is not in concert with state law. So I think, my advice is, if we think somebody is trying to push the envelope, is not to haul them into an unnecessary hearing where we're drawing lines in the sand, but let's keep an eye on it. So if they do cross that line, then it's an enforcement measure. But I mean, I understand the desire sometimes, especially if you have a certain philosophical opinion about a project, to say, hey, let's try to get at this before it becomes a problem. But I'm also seeing a very gray area in terms of property rights that I think we need to be a little bit cognizant of and say, hey, if you're 101 feet out, you're safe. But if you move 2 feet, I don't want to say we're coming after you, because I think that seems antagonistic, but I think it is our responsibility to keep an eye on them at that point.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fowler, you had something?
We're hearing a lot. You've been here 3 terms, I guess, 2 terms, 1 term, looking for reappointment. So this is not new, just because we've got a large audience tonight, and I just want you to know that this is not new. What we're doing tonight, my first round of appointments 14 years ago, I guess, Conservation Commission came up. Evan O'Reilly sat there nominating them, nobody seconded him. And there was 3 new selectmen on the board, and we hadn't discussed things in the background or anything. It's just the way it was, and we've had conservation agents in front of us many times. So I'm gonna ask one question of them, but I'm gonna kind of explain why. One question for each of you. When you first came, 9 years ago, 6 years ago, 3 years ago, can you tell me how I voted? Did I vote in favor of you?
I don't think you did.
You voted for me.
Laura, can you remember?
I believe you did.
Okay.
Actually, I think it was unanimous when I was in also. I think
No, and
a lot of tough
it's
questions.
just
but
to say,
everybody
yeah,
said,
and it's
yeah.
not unusual. I
Yeah.
mean, I see Rachel also a member here,
Yeah.
and she has reminded me, I've gotten to know Rachel, we served together on another board, that the first time I did not vote in favor of Rachel. I think in the past I have always, and I think I've always, but, so if I vote no, don't be surprised, I guess, on some reappointments. But, well, you can ask where I'm going. I mean, I'm just trying to explain that this is nothing unusual for this board. The conservation, I guess it's not an easy job. It's not an easy job, and I don't take the appointments lightly, and I don't always, when someone's first here, I haven't always been in favor of them, and even though they've still gotten on the board, and that's fine. And I thank everybody that's on conservation now for their service. And you know, I've read over the past years your minutes for another, not because of appointments, but for another issue that was in front of this board. And I like to do homework. And believe me, it took time to read over your minutes because they are very well done. They are word for word. And I mean, I think other than maybe an issue Orlando spoke to, I've supported, I can see why you've voted the way you've done and the things you've done. And yeah, when things take years, I can see. I don't know what you call them. Customer asked for it to be continued. In February, in March, customer asked for it to be continued, and it comes up. So it's not always, the timing is not always your board. I understand. So, but
Well,
I
and
just wanted to.
And in some issues, it's a different code. Like I think 175 West Street, that's been continued probably over 3 years now.
What
But-
is 175
Oh,
West?
No, Central Street. I'm sorry, Central Street.
Oh, he has requested that.
That is an issue. There's two issues there complicating conservation being able to close that if they were so inclined to close it out. There's still two other
Well, it's
issues.
just the one thing I did question, and it could be you fall under different laws in this board. I mean, we many times will approve things with contingencies. Contingent, we may not have the proper insurance in front of us. So we say, well, we approve this contingent. And what I've seen is sometimes on the septic systems, they don't have, what I've seen was they didn't have all the Board of Health stuff done, but it was supposed to, because of how everybody meets. And I would think that maybe you give somebody a break and say, yeah, we're gonna approve this contingent that the Board of Health votes in favor of. But you could fall under different laws. Okay, well, okay, I don't understand it all, that's what I'm saying. So,
Mr. Chairman, is it correct to keep speculating on these matters that the board really isn't?
Excuse me, we don't have public discussion right now.
so,
Thank you.
Well, I thank you. I just wanted to, my main question was to try to jog my memory how I voted. And years back when they came here, I thank them for their service. And so if anybody else has got any questions.
Selectman Kershaw doesn't.
Yes, I do.
Selectman.
I
don't have any questions.
I have one question for each one of you. Now, I came onto the Board of Selectmen about 2.5 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and it was right at the height of COVID. We were doing Zoom meetings, and we did some appointments, and there was two people, I think, waiting to be reappointed, or we were going to reappoint them, and there was certainly a level of anxiety and stress around the whole process. From my end, a perspective in terms of the number of emails I got and the communication I got, and more kind of like what was perceived as going on behind the scenes and stuff like that. And I was very new to this process, and I took it with a grain of salt, and I went with what my gut was, and the two people that were there, I reappointed. Just for lack of knowledge and understanding and really a depth of who has been on those boards, I felt my decision was best to go with who are currently on those boards, who have experience, the people that had come forward. One of them I was not in favor of, the other one was, I think, Logan. And I felt Logan was a close runner for that. But I ask each one of you, if you could answer me, how do you feel about one of you stepping down or someone joining this board, which would mean one of you stepping down? And not stepping down, but us not appointing one of you. How do you feel about a new member coming into this board? Your personal feeling of that? I know it's a tough question.
Well, I'm new to the board.
Mhm.
This is my first go round, if you will. I enjoy the board very well. And I think the members on the board are very knowledgeable, willing, able. Nobody's a slouch. Nobody shirks any responsibilities. So I'm not sure it's a question that I could answer properly, truthfully. If there were people that were absent a lot, and though we made a quorum, it was difficult, missing people, but that's not the case. Everybody's there. In 3 years, I think I was sick once, and we had a very small agenda. And we were given an option if somebody wanted to step down for the night and not come. So in 3 years, I've been there, and in 3 years, is my recollection is most everybody is present. So I'm not sure a question like that is I don't want to say fair or unfair, but I think our commission works very hard in unison. We think things through, we have discussions, and we try to come up with very knowledgeable and fair solutions to our residents to get their projects done. And many are continued, you're right. Many people request a continuation. So I would like to stay on, and I would be very pleased to work with everybody on the commission because of their knowledge and understanding. And I'm learning from them everything that's going on. And I enjoy the visits that we do take to the residents, and the residents are very happy to see us come out. So that's about the extent of how I feel about the question. I don't know if it's a good answer or not, but
I will say why I asked it, okay? Because I'm not a big favor of term limits. I don't intend to be a selectman for the rest of my life. I tend to volunteer my time, provide it to the community,
exactly,
and move on,
right,
and maybe come back again,
right,
when I have more time to spend on stuff.
right.
But,
well, I agree.
So that's, it's
As
all a balance in life.
Exactly,
I'm not a big
exactly.
fan of.
Let me
term
ask you a
limits.
question. Are you talking about the letters that came in against me
No, I'm not
2.5
talking
years
about
ago?
it.
You can be honest with me, because those had nothing to do with conservation.
I'm not talking about any letters that came in about you.
Well, you said there was a lot going on. I can understand that.
I received a number of emails back then. I can go back through my email and read them, of people's opinions of what the board should do. So it was a tremendous amount of traffic that I was really shocked at. And it does seem like the board fills up when it's conservation. It certainly didn't fill up when, we were hiring a town administrator. That's it. I mean, that's my honest perception of it. Open and honest, okay? I'm not saying that the commission, I've worked very closely with Steve, very, very closely. And I have respect for him, and he has a level of respect for me because we pay it to one another. So that's all. I mean, I'm not a big fan of term limits. I mean, I am a big fan of term limits. Excuse me. I think people should not be on here as lifers. And that's all. I think having fresh blood come in and having people look at things in a different way is healthy.
Well, can I add just one little thing? Sorry.
Go.
Projects that come in are all different and new and fresh. And we still have to put our thinking caps on to come up with a solution to help that resident get done what they want to get done.
Yeah.
So it's not like when I worked in school, year after year, it pretty much September was September and the months went through and so on and so forth. I'm finding that this commission is different every month. There's new challenges every single month. So it's not stagnant. It's not static. It moves along. We put our heads together with knowledge to really do the best we can for the resident. We're not volunteering our time for ourselves. We are here, a problem has come to us, and we are here to put a solution to that problem as quickly as possible. Many times, we get the continuation, a lot. So that project looks like we're doing nothing, it's going on and on and on. It's the resident or the person that is requesting month after month after month continuation, whether they have other things going on, whether they want to look into other things. But we don't stagnate those, residents.
I'm not implying.
But,
I'm not implying.
So as far as I can see, it's a very active, it's an ongoing, it's every month is different. And we really have to put different ideas forward to help people, because everything that goes on in somebody's property is different from your neighbor's property. So I don't know if that kind of clarifies that it's not stagnant at all. And
I never implied it was a stagnant job.
Well,
no
I
more
mean,
than the selectmen or no more than planning or
right,
zoning.
right, exactly,
It's a very dynamic
exactly.
situation in municipal
Exactly,
government.
exactly.
And
And for those of us that are retired, this is very exciting to go to and to help, because
maybe
sometimes
I'll come
life
back
becomes
when I'm
stagnant.
retired.
Yes, yes. So,
Okay.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure, for my part, that the routine and fresh eyes, it's the project that makes the fresh eyes, not the people. The people come up with solutions because of their knowledge. What's presented to us is fresh, and everybody's land is different. So what you did for Johnny, you can't do for Mary.
Right.
So I'll stop.
Okay, so.
Actually, I do have a question.
Go right
So,
ahead, ma'am.
and this is to all of you. How do you feel your various areas of expertise in conservation and ecology complement each other? Like, do you feel like when you have to work on a project, do you feel that the board as a whole and the commission as a whole has a balance?
Oh,
Yes,
I do.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Yeah.
And in fact, we have Carl as our chair, who has an extraordinary
Yeah, huge.
depth of knowledge
Huge.
about chemicals and contaminants, and oh my gosh, I mean, he is so incredibly valuable, and he educates all of us in terms of, we've worked with some very complicated pollution projects and cleanup projects, and Carl's knowledge is depthless. He truly knows everything. And Rebecca has a lot of knowledge about ponds, living on one. I have an education and background for various levels, sciencey stuff. So I think we all bring something different, but we listen to each other very well, and we mesh very well.
Yeah.
We're very respectful of
Right.
each other and of our applicant.
Well, that being said, thank you very much. And I'd like to call Logan up now, please.
Are we gone? Thank you.
Okay, state your name and address.